Okay, so uh, we are going to start the new topic today. Last time we were discussing about the thyroid gland and its different diseases. Now it's parathyroid gland. So these are the parathyroid glands. They are four in number. They are paired two above and two at the lower pole of the thyroid gland. You can see how is their shape, their color, and their size, estimated size. And then this is the typical position or normal anatomical position of the parathyroid glands. This is the anatomy. They are four in number, small ovarian shape. The size of these parathyroid glands is 0.5 centimeter or 5 millimeter. They are soft, they are mobile, yellowish brown in color, and they are arranged in pairs. While their upper pair more constant position, there is 80% are on posterior lateral aspect of thyroid, close to peripothyroid articulation, and 20% are posterior lateral to upper pole. So 80% are posterior lateral to the thyroid, close to peripothyroid articulation, while 20% are posterior lateral to upper pole. And lower pole, another pole, a pair of the parathyroid is at the lower pole, which are 40% found at lower pole of thyroid, 50% within thymus trunk, and 20% variable in position. So these are the positions of the parathyroid gland. That means away from the normal descent, embryological normal descent. So these are the sites you can read and you can see. One is carotid sheath, another is intrathyroidal, that means inside the thyroid gland, another is thymic, that is close to the thymus, that is 66%. Ectopic position most common is thymic side. Then the retropharyngeal, that means behind the retropharynx, and the retrophageal area, and then mediastinum. So these are the 6 points or the sites where the parathyroid can descend abnormally. Each gland has delicate capsule in which they are enveloped and which is supplied by a single blood vessel. So this is the histology. There are two types of cells histologically in the parathyroid gland, and they are chief cells and auxiliary cells. What the function of chief cells is? This is has a small vesicular nuclei, and then less auxiliary cell is less numerous and larger granular sepals with decreased general nuclei. Chief cells produce parathormone. So this is the function of the chief cells, and this is the important and hormone which is secreted by the chief cells. It stimulates osteoclastic activity. What is the function of parathormone is? It stimulates osteoclastic activity, increasing bone resorption by mobilizing calcium phosphate. Calcium and phosphate is mobilized in the bones so that the osteoclastic activity is stimulated by the parathormone. Then it increases resorption of calcium by renal tubules, reducing urinary calcium. By reducing urinary calcium, what happens? There is the regulation of the calcium, and there are no chances of complication that is called as renal stones due to the increased calcium amount. So, what does the parathormone do? It causes the reabsorption of calcium by renal tubules, reducing urinary calcium. So basically, its main function is to bring the calcium more in the plasma through the bones, through the kidney by reabsorption. Then it also augments the absorption of calcium from the gut. So while the vitamin D is the main source of absorption of the calcium from the gut, then it also regulates the absorption of calcium from the gut. It also reduces the renal tubular reduction of phosphate, promoting phosphaturia. That means this causes the decreased amount of the phosphate in the plasma of the blood by increasing the excretion of the phosphate of the kidneys in the urine. Now, this is one of the disease of the parathyroid hormone that is called hypoparathyroidism, that is decreased amount of the hypoparathyroid hormone or the hypoparathyroid gland, which causes the decreased amount of the parathyroid hormone. This causes of this hypoparathyroidism are if you go through the thyroid surgery and we also excise the whole or the part of the parathyroid hormone. Most of the time it is transient hypoparathyroidism that is not common. It takes 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to bring the function of the parathyroid to normal level. Then again, it's parathyroid surgery itself, and then spontaneous hypoparathyroidism. What are the clinical features of the hypoparathyroidism? You can see in the picture, this is a carpal spasm. Before carpal spasm, we discussed about the first symptoms, and these are tingling and numbness on the face, fingers, and toes. And again, there are cramps in hands and feet in severe cases. So these are the initial symptoms. Patient will start complaining about tingling and numbness on the face, fingers, and toes, and then cramps in hands and feet in severe cases, which leads to the carpal spasm. This is called extended fingers are flexed. And you can see they are flexed at the metacarpophalangeal joints, while the thumb is strongly adducted. And if you see the feet, toes will be flexed, that will be plantar flexion, and at the ankle joint, the joint will be extended. The foot will be extended at the ankle joint, while the toes will be flexed to the plantar side. Then there is another symptoms of the spasm, pain and stridor and suffocation due to respiratory muscle spasm, tetany in children, and then on investigation, you see the decrease in the serum calcium level. So these are all the symptoms due to the hypocalcemia. While there is hypoparathyroidism, there is a decreased growth hormone, and at the same time, due to the decrease of the growth hormone, there will be low level of serum calcium, and initial low levels, there will be symptoms of tingling and numbness. While it will be worsened, you will find the carpal spasm. Now, these are the signs of the tetany of the hypocalcemia patients. One is Chostek sign, another is Trosis sign. These are well-known signs of the hypocalcemia. What is Chostek sign? You can see on the picture, a person is there and another person is stepping over the facial nerve branches at the angle of the mandible, while there is the twitching of corner of mouth or the angle of mouth and ally of nose and then eyelid. While at the same time, there's a picture shown Rosie's sign that there is a curve of blood pressure apparatus applied on the arm. Once this is inflated above the systolic for more than 2 minutes, then the carpal spasm. So these are two signs of hypoparathyroidism. One may ask from you, the examiner may ask from you the signs Chopstick sign and then Rosie's sign. Then the treatment of hypoparathyroidism is slow intravenous injection up to 10 20 ml of 10% of calcium gluconate within 10 to 20 minutes. This is the formula of 10 and 20. While there is a case of hypocalcemia, you will inject 10 to 20 ml of calcium gluconate, 10% calcium gluconate in 10 to 20 minutes. While orally, you can give vitamin D3 so that it can also help in the absorption of the calcium from the GIT. Now, this is another condition which is called hypoparathyroidism, and this is more common as compared to hypoparathyroidism. So, this is a picture. You can see one of the glands, 4 glands of parathyroid is hypertrophic. You can see on the picture, and this is more dense in color, and then more prominent as compared to the other glands. While at the same time, the rest of the three glands are smaller in size as compared to the normal size. So this could be due to the adenoma of the single whole parathyroid gland, or hyperplasia or overactivity over increased number of the cell, or then there is the occasionally carcinoma, very rare, but carcinoma is there. Can you please close your videos? Switch off your videos, please, students. All right. So then there is a single adenoma is the commonest condition. Whole gland is enlarged. This is a picture. Picture can tell you how a single adenoma is common condition, while the whole gland is enlarged in that picture. They are darker in color, former, and more vascular than the other glands. And the histological predominance of chief and water clear cells is present in the adenoma. This is secondary hyperparathyroidism. This was primary hyperparathyroidism, that is from the gland itself. Then secondary is due to chronic liver failure, due to malabsorption syndrome, due to chronic hypocalcemia, hyperplasia. Once there is hypocalcemia, there is feedback from the parathormone which causes the hyperplasia of the gland, and then R4 glands are involved. The secondary hyperparathyroidism, we can differentiate it from the primary, that R4 glands will be involved in the secondary hyperparathyroidism. So there's a picture illustration as well. You can see there is decreased calcium in the blood. So there is a stimulation, feedback parathormone, which causes the increased stimulation of the parathyroid gland, which causes the increased size or hyperplasia of the parathyroid gland. Also, parathyroid glands will be equally enlarged and in secondary hyperparathyroidism. The third type is tertiary hyperparathyroidism, that is parathyroids not responding to physiological stimuli. They are reactive. There is reactive hyperplasia, and then function is autonomous. It functions autonomously. Now, the clinical features of hyperparathyroidism are this is the point where you can differentiate the hyperparathyroidism with the carcinoma of the parathyroid gland. That is, the hyperparathyroidism is rarely found in first decade of life, while CF parathyroid, which also represents like hyperparathyroidism clinically, but it never is present in the first decade of life. So this is a differentiating point in the clinical features between the hyperparathyroidism and carcinoma of the parathyroid, and that is the hyperparathyroidism is rarely found in the first decade, while CA parathyroid is most of the time present in the first decade of life. This is common in women and common in ages between 20 to 60 years of age. They are while when they are asymptomatic, but hypocalcemia is found accidentally upon routine investigation for some other disease. So these are the main, again, this is an important saying as far as the clinical features of the hyperparathyroidism is concerned, that is bones, stones, abdominal groans, and saccade moles. This means the symptoms of the bones, most of the time there are the cystic lesions of the bones, even in the fractures in most severe cases due to the increased resorption of the calcium and the matrix from the bones, there is the weakness of the bones which leads to the fractures. Then, due to the hypercalcinosis or increased amount of the calcium in the blood, there are the stones. As there's more saturation of the calcium in the kidneys, so the renal stones. And what are the abdominal groans? This is also called as calcium-induced ileus. This results in the nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, indigestion, and constipation. So these are the three main features of abdominal groans, and then psychic moans. In other words, depression. So 50% patients suffer from any of these symptoms. 50% of the patients either they may present with the bone issues or renal stones, abdominal growths, or psychic moans. And while again, the clinical features non-specific are muscle weakness, thirst, polyuria, anorexia, and weight loss. So, muscle weakness, thirst, polyuria, anorexia, and weight loss are they are not specific symptoms of hyperparathyroidism. That means you can think about any other problem as well, but after the investigations, you may come to know that this is due to the hyperparathyroidism. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, good. So then this is the bone disease actually we were talking about while in the hyperparathyroidism generalized decalcification of the skeleton, single or multiple cysts of the bone. You can see in the picture there is the decreased density of the bones. Uh, this again leads to the weakness of the bones, and then this is the pseudotumors of the bone common in jaw bones. This is one of the presentation of the hyperparathyroidism. And then prostatitis fibrosa cystica or von Hansen's disease. This is also called as neurofibromatosis type 1 disease. And in this disease, the tumors or which are non-cancerous, and these tumors are involving the skin and the nerves. So this is called as prostatitis fibrosa cystica or von Hansen's disease. This is one of the type of presentation of the hyperparathyroidism. Then the loss of bone density and subperiosteal erosion first appear in skeletal phalanges. So you can see in the phalanges, the loss of the density is there. So these are the renal stones or nephrocalcinosis must be considered as a result of hyperparathyroidism. That means while you consider the renal stones, you will go after the investigations of the kidney, including ultrasound, you can find these stones. Then there are dyspeptic symptoms including nausea and vomiting, anorexia, and hepatic ulcer disease. And the psychiatric problems like women complaining of tiredness, listlessness, and personality changes. While we discuss about nausea and abdomen, then followed by severe vomiting, dehydration or leukorrhea, finally coma, serum calcium levels is very high. The treatment is this is called hyperparathyroidism crisis. In this our acute hyperparathyroidism, in this condition you will find the severe vomiting, dehydration due to the vomiting, then urinary output is low, so the oliguria, and then finally coma. And but at the same time, if we go for the serum calcium level, this will be very high. So the treatment of this condition is urgent rehydration, biphosphonate inhibitors of bone is option. And then dehydration is these are again the clinical examination of the hyperparathyroidism. You will find dehydration, confusion, corneal calcification at medial and lateral borders of limbus, and then band keratopathy. This keratopathy is transverse band of calcification across the cornea. In conjunctival calcification, hypertension in 50% of the patients. Most of the patients of hypercalcemia, you will see hypertension. And then the ECG changes are shortening of the QT interval, And then increased ST segment length. The parathyroid hormone may be palpable, but not in every case. These are investigations. Serum albumin, serum calcium level is high, around 10.5 to 11.6, and then found form of the serum calcium needs serum albumin level estimation plus free serum calcium. And serum phosphate is decreased. As I told you, increased growth hormone causes increased level of the calcium in the blood, and then it causes resorption or excretion of the phosphate from the kidneys. And then again, increased levels of urinary calcium with the elevated serum alkaline phosphatase due to bone resorption and increased level of parathyroid hormone. Diagnosis is confirmed by hypocalcemia and will exclude any other cause of hypocalcemia, while the raised level of parathormone is only present in the hypoparathyroidism. These are the other causes of hypocalcemia. These are secondary bones from breast, prostate, bronchus, kidney, thyroid, and then carcinoma of endocrine secretion, that is bronchus, bronchi, and kidney and ovary, while multiple myeloma, vitamin D intoxication, sulfur dose immobilization, thyrotoxicosis, and medications like thiazide and lithium. These are the other causes of hypercalcemia. So this is a saying that increased level of growth hormone is the differentiating investigation only raised in hyperparathyroidism, as I told you. Growth hormone is only increased in the hyperparathyroidism, while the hypercalcemia may be increased in other diseases as well. So this is your localization investigations. Before you go for the excision of the parathyroid gland, you first isolate the parathyroid with the help of thallium technetium isotope scanning or neck ultrasonography, MRI, CT scanning, selective angiography, and selective venous sampling. While the treatment is surgical removal of overactive parathyroid. These are the choices. 90% are adenomas. They are removed. Adenomas have no any dense adherence to the nearby or surrounding tissues, so it can be excised easily, and then excised, and then after excision, this is sent for the biopsy or histopathology. And then 10% are hyperplasia. They remove all four glands and then do the autotransplantation of the parathyroid glands. And this autotransplantation can be done in the neck, on the side of the neck, in the muscle bed, or in the arm and the brachial muscles. So you can think about the autotransplantation where it will be done on the two sides. This is on the muscle bed of the side of the neck or in the arm. So next is carcinoma of parathyroid, which is rare. That is 1% of primary hyperparathyroidism, and then overall estimated prevalence is 0.005%. While the genetic factors are involved, recent history of neck adhesion is present. It can arise in end-stage renal disease patients as well, in those with MAN type 1. Then the malignant transformation and hyperplastic gland may occur. So you can see in this picture, this is the hyperplasia, but this is different type of hyperplasia, and this is malignancy. While you saw the previous picture of the benign parathyroid tumor or the adenoma, but there was a single gland at the single upper pole which was increased in size as compared to the rest of the parathyroid glands. So carcinoma is very rare, that is 1%. And then this is very difficult to diagnose as biochemically this resembles primary hyperparathyroidism. As I told you in the previous slide that this hyperparathyroidism resembles with the parathyroid, but the only differentiating point was the hyperparathyroidism is rarely present in the early decade of life, while this carcinoma of parathyroid is present in the early decade of the life. So treatment is focused on controlling hypercalcemia, which is again the presentation in the parathyroid, and then removal of carcinoma whenever it is possible. Thank you very much, students. You can ask any questions. This is another slide. Surgery remains the mainstay of treatment. Primary presentation locally recurrent disease, complete resection of the tumor, avoiding spillage in vital in preventing seeding and thus recurrent disease. This means that you have to excise in total while avoiding the spillage of the tumor to the surrounding tissues or in the vessel areas or the blood areas and blood vessels near blood vessels so that you can prevent its seeding in the place and then again occurrence of the disease. So students, I have completed the lecture today, which is on parathyroid, parathyroid glands, parathyroidism, hyperparathyroidism, and the benign and malignant tumors of the parathyroid. That is adenoma and parathyroid. So you can ask questions if you are confused regarding anything.